I think yesterday in the governor's statement that he read on behalf of the minister, he mentioned that Namibia is committed to develop its infrastructure and logistical services. And I think this morning's presentations also focused on the need to improve efficiencies in our logistics and services sectors. And as Trudy had mentioned earlier, the Walvis Bay Corridor Group or the Walvis Bay Harbour developments are very critical sort of a manifestation of what this intent is to try and improve the facilities, which aims, of course, to enhance Namibia's efficiency and competitiveness. I think the reasons are well known to all of us, and I'm not going to bore you as to why we need to improve our efficiencies. They're all laid out very clearly this morning. But to shed more light on the topic, I would like to introduce our two speakers that are going to present this morning. Mr. Klaus Schade. Mr. Klaus Schade joined the Economic Association of Namibia as its executive director in April, 1st of April actually, 2016. He has been involved in socioeconomics research in Namibia for close to 20 years. His main areas include macroeconomic and fiscal policy analysis, regional integration and international trade and poverty analysis. He has been involved in the formulation of various policies and sector strategies, including the 4th National Development Plan, which began in 2012 and is close to ending in 2017, as well as the growth strategy for metal fabrication industry, which is part of our Growth at Home strategy. He has also constructed the 2013 Social Accounting Matrix for Namibia. Before he joined the Economic Association of Namibia, he was involved or had held various positions in NEPRU, which is Namibia's Economic Policy Research Unit, which is no longer existing now. He has been reappointed to the tralac board in 2013. I'd like to welcome Mr. Schade to the podium oh, yes, before that, I'll introduce my other presenter, Mr. Immanuel Shipanga. He'll give us more details regarding the actual work of the harbour developments as well as the Walvis Bay Corridor Group, which is a public-private partnership between the government and various parastatals and private sector entities. Immanuel is responsible for project development and funding department at the Walvis Bay Corridor Group. His professional experience involves education, demography, transportation, policy, and environmental economics. He worked in the Ministry of Works and Transport before joining the GIZ as a technical advisor to the Minister of the Ministry of Works and Transport. At the Walvis Bay Corridor Group, he is responsible for soft or projects affiliated to the Walvis Bay Container Terminal Expansion Project. These include National Logistics Master Plan, trade facilitation, road safety, and capacity and institutional buildings to ensure continuation, transport facilitation, advocacy. And so I would like to introduce my speakers. I think Immanuel is coming first, and then Klaus is going to do the analysis or economic analysis thereof.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As I was already introduced, my name is Immanuel Shipanga, and I'm responsible for projects and funding at the Walvis Bay Corridor Group. Today, I'm going to take you through a short presentation on the Walvis Bay Harbour, the Port of Walvis Bay, the transport corridors, and the country's vision on establishing the logistics hub for Southern Africa. At first, I would like to start with the outline of my presentation. I will talk a little bit on the members of Walvis Bay Corridor Group, or mainly on the Walvis Bay Corridor Group, who we are. I will talk about the mandate, the vision of the country, which is the Logistics Master Plan. The Logistics Master Plan and the Logistics Hub Dream. Also a little bit talk about the promotion and infrastructure development that the Walvis Bay Corridor Group is responsible for. The connectivities to Walvis Bay Corridor or Walvis Bay Port, the transport corridors, our footprints in the Southern Africa region, and also some of the few outcomes that actually come out of the Walvis Bay Corridor Group activities so far. Who are the Walvis Bay Corridor Group? The group is actually a private public partnership institution that was established in the year 2000, and it's a not-for-profit company with a combination of the institutions that are actually presented. In the first layer, we do have what we call a private sector representative, and those are the Namibia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Namibia Logistics Association. This is a combination of most of the transporters and also the freight forwarders in Namibia. We have the Container Liner Operators Forum, and these ones are basically based in Walvis Bay. Walvis Bay Port Users Association, this is an association representing all the users of the Port of Walvis Bay. And lastly, this is one of the new entrants in the group, the Namibia Transporters Association. This is a group of SMEs that are actually entering transportation as freight forwarders or as transporters. On the second level, these are the semi-state organization, and we have Trans-Namib. Trans-Namib, this is the rail operators in Namibia. We have the Roads Authority. These are the guys that are responsible for managing the roads. Namibia is quite famous and known for all good and bad reasons. Most of people know it. We have Namport. Namport are the port operators, the organization where we're going to see this afternoon. And then we have also Walvis Bay Municipality. The Walvis Bay Municipality is actually involved in a group because of all those development actually that are happening around the port of Walvis Bay, including land and other issues. And then the last layer here are 4 government institutions. The first is the Ministry of Works and Transport. The first represent the Ministry of Works and Transport. That's because most of these organizations like Roads Authority in Namibia all reports to the Ministry of Works and Transport. We also have the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance, this is because of the customs and customs operations. We have Ministry of Home Affairs and Immigration because of their presence at the border and their involvement as well and the operations thereof. And the last one is the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and SME Development. Mostly all these activities that we deal with also involve cross-border trade, and that's why they are part of the group. This organization forms the Walvis Bay Corridor Group, and it's PPP because it's a private sector, semi-public and public institutions. The company, like I've already mentioned, it was established in the year 2000, and this was mainly to promote the use or increase utilization of the Port of Walvis Bay and the Walvis Bay Corridors via from and to Southern Africa. But we also have another port in Namibia down the south called the Port of Rudritz, which is also part of our responsibilities. But mainly we've been responsible more on the ports of Walvis Bay at this stage. The vision. It was already mentioned that through the Namibian National Development Plan, the country identified logistics as one of the key priority areas. And the vision here is actually to make Namibia as a port or preferred entry of import and export through Southern Africa. And that is illustrated in this kind of picture where you have actually Walvis Bay Port here as one of the entry, or it's in kind of a shopping mall kind of presentation. And this could be the main entrance to what we call the SADC Mall with all these kind of markets. As you can see, Namibia with about 1.8 million people, or the market. We have Botswana there, Zambia, through the corridors or the routes that I'm actually going to explain on the later stage. The focus for the Walvis Bay Corridor Group has been actually to increase the cargo volumes of the Port of Walvis Bay and actually to increase the volumes on our corridors. This is mostly done through the infrastructure development. This picture is a picture of what the new Port of Walvis Bay container terminal. The Walvis Bay port currently is handling, it has a handling capacity of about 350,000 TEUs per annum. The new container terminal, which is actually being illustrated here, this portion here, it has not been there actually, and is to add an additional 650,000 TEUs. And then both two, the existing one and the new one, will then be able to add and to have a complete of 1 million TEUs per annum. This picture actually was taken last year by April. There's actually recent ones, which I was not able to have access to, but since you are going to see the port, you will be able to see the progress that has actually taken place at this stage. As you can see, the port is kind of surrounded by the town development. So that has been difficult for the expansion of the port because of all these developments that boxed in the harbour. Therefore, the only option for expansion that was left is actually to reclaim. This has been all the ocean, to reclaim this part of the ocean and then build the container terminal. And this is what has been constructed now since last year. The project actually has been into phases. The phase one, which is reclamation of the land from the ocean, has been completed in March this year. You will see the progress that has been made so far. Then that will be followed by the quarry deck construction and crane installation, which will actually be completed by December. And then the whole project of the new container terminal should be ready and for commissioning by May 2017. So actually a year from now, the new container terminal will be completed. Government has been also developing another port north of the existing port, and this is what they call the Schade Gateway Port. The Schade Gateway Port is one of the big investments that the government is planning to invest in. And it involves about 1,330 hectares of port land, and it's actually divided into about 4 or 5 phases. Phase one is the oil terminal, or the new tanker berths. As we will be driving into the Port of Walvis Bay, before you enter the town, you will see the developments happening on the right-hand side of the, that's actually where they are constructing the new port, and they already started with the oil terminals. And this will be followed by phase two, which mostly the gas terminal, and then phase three, the multi-bulk terminal, and then phase four will include the ship and oil rig repair yard, and the last one is the Botswana coal terminal, which is actually linked to the Trans-Caprivi rail that has been spoken and discussed between the government of Namibia and government of Botswana. Other infrastructures of focus, what we do from Walvis Bay Corridor Group is also a promotion and the utilization of rail infrastructures and development. As you can see, the rail in Namibia is actually underutilized, but Corridor Group, through the institutional representative, actually is discussing to increase the utilization of the rail. I think my colleague is going to talk more a little bit about the rail development in Namibia. However, the corridors that we are utilizing at this stage are mainly of the road transport. And I like this picture. And this picture was actually, it's actually a picture of a bridge between Namibia and Zambia over the Zambezi River that was constructed and completed in 2004. And this has been the game changer in actually cross-border trade because it gives access to most of the markets via Zambia and southern DRC, Katanga province. The connectivity to Walvis Bay, one of the main selling points for Walvis Bay has been always the strategic location. As you can see, Walvis Bay is there, and the shortest distances to some of the markets. So Walvis Bay has connectivities to Brazil, which is a short distance, actually, of less than 7 days of direct call. We have West Coast Africa there, West Coast of Africa, and we also have some connections with Americas there, and then Europe. So the main economic center actually is potential. They have potential of a main economic center because of the strategic locations. And these are a few connectivities that Walvis Bay Corridor and Walvis Bay Port is having with the outside world. Our corridors internally, as soon as the goods has arrived at the port of Walvis Bay, we have 4 main corridors. The first one is the corridor that links the port of Walvis Bay via the road to Okahanja, Obabis, and it takes us to Botswana up to Johannesburg. There is already an arrangement between the tripartite arrangement between the 3 member states, Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa, under what we call Trans-Kalahari Secretariat, Corridor Secretariat. And this is the famous Trans-Kalahari corridor that actually gives us access to these countries, Botswana, South Africa, and our neighboring Zimbabwe country. The second one and the main corridor that we have is the Walvis Bay Ndola Lubumbashi. It was formerly known as Trans-Caprivi, but then with an inclusion of Zambia on the arrangement, so the name was was now renamed to Walvis Bay, which is now in Namibia, Ndola, which is in Zambia, and Lubumbashi, which is in DRC. And it's mainly connecting Namibia to Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and DRC. The third one is the Transkunene. And this is the corridor now connecting Namibia to Angola through these towns up to Oshikango and then to Lubango. And this corridor has been mainly focusing on the development activities around northern Namibia and southern Angola for a couple of years. And the last one is the Trans-Orange River, or Trans-Orange Corridor, and this is mainly the corridor that connects us from Luderitz going via southern Namibia and also northern Cape area of South Africa. And this is mainly serving the grape farmers and also some mining activities that are in that region. The corridor group has established themselves properly in Southern Africa. We had a head office which is based in Windhoek, which is opened in year 2000. After that, we have opened also an office in Lusaka. And this office is more responsible for developing business for the Port of Walvis Bay and our corridors. The third office that we have opened is in Johannesburg. It was opened in 2008. Then Lubumbashi, we have also presence in Lubumbashi there, and the office was opened in 2012. And lastly is the Sao Paulo link in trying to establish the direct call between Namibia and Brazil. What has been the outcome so far? Looking back when this corridor was, and this trade facilitation and this activity was established, there were a lot of challenges. Actually, there were few and many outcomes or benefits. However, I've only listed a few of them. We have managed to create an alternative trade routes. This is actually alternative from the existing main routes like Dar corridors or Dar es Salaam Port, Durban Port, and many other ports within the Southern Africa. There is also somehow a reduction on the supply chain costs, which makes it easier for private sector to do business. And there's a reduction on the transit time. Walvis Bay offers, through the efficiencies that we have, offers a fast movement of goods to destinations. We have continuous improvement in some of those activities that we are working on, and also have an increase in intra and international regional trade.
A caveat before I start with my presentation, it's nothing new that I'm going to present, I'm afraid. It's something we should or we know since quite a while. I'll take a slightly different approach from my colleague Immanuel. I'm focusing on the logistics sector, but I would like to link it to the Sustainable Development Goals and also focus on the SADC protocol on transport, communication, and meteorology. Briefly, Immanuel described all the infrastructural developments at the Walvis Bay Harbour, the development of the new SADC gateway port, also referred to the railway construction that has been neglected, I would say, over the past decades, and I believe it still doesn't receive the attention that is needed to deal with a much larger cargo or shipments through the Walvis Bay Harbour. When we talk about road and railway infrastructure development, it's not only about the kilometer we add to the railway lines and to the roads. It's about the safety standards. In particular with the roads, we need to agree on the road with certain safety features, reflectors, shoulders, and so on and so forth to reduce accidents, fatalities, loss of goods on the way. With the railway, it's the same. I believe we need at least medium long-term vision of our railway system, not just in Namibia, but in the whole southern African region. Are we going to continue with the current narrow gauge, or are we moving to the standard gauge? I'm not an engineer, but as a layman, it would make a lot of sense probably to move to a standard, broader gauge because of speed, axle load, and so on and so forth. We see what's happening in the EAC and in Kenya, the ambitious plans with the railway links from Mombasa, not just to Nairobi, but further to South Sudan, Uganda, and other neighboring countries. So I think we need a decision also before we start with these ambitious plans of a Trans-Kalahari railway line. Once that is in place, I think it's very difficult to revert or to reverse and decide on something else. So this is a decision that needs to be taken sooner than later, and it needs to be taken within the region as well. But it's not only road and railway infrastructure. It's also airport infrastructure. The airport of Walvis Bay was upgraded. It's now an international airport. It can accommodate much larger airplanes, and so in the north on Dangwa as well. And this is important for intermodal transports. I think we need to move on from just loading or unloading containers from vessels on the rail or on trucks. It might be that there is demand even for combined sea-air transport systems to move cargo fast from Walvis Bay to neighboring countries, avoiding all the delays at border posts and so on and so forth. Also storage facilities, communication infrastructure needs to be improved. Mark referred yesterday to the Namibia Trade Information Portal, which is a very good, I think, initiative. Although I missed information on transport issues. There is nothing mentioned about cabotage permits and so on. The only website that refers in SADC to cabotage is the Lesotho Trade Portal. Otherwise, the internet is silent. And there are no other trade portals, at least I couldn't trace any on the SADC region. This is important communication infrastructure, that you have easy and affordable access to latest information, which is important to transport operators. Besides the hard physical infrastructure, we need the soft infrastructure, human capacities, not just customs and immigration officials. We need, of course, enough, and we need sufficiently qualified officials, but also police transport inspectors that ensure that rules and regulations are adhered to. We need transport and logistics operators that know and have the expertise, and also bring with them networks, global networks. You can only attract further traffic to Namibia when you have networks in other continents, and can convince shipping lines and so to call in Walvis Bay rather than in Cape Town or Durban. And emergency personnel. It's because of the collateral damage, as the news speak, on the roads. But not only that, there will be more and more hazardous substances transported by rail or by road or other means. And we need the emergency systems in place to respond to any accidents on the roads. Fortunately, so far we haven't had any major incidences there, except for with the railway, but in future it might look different. We need to invest in research and development, innovation, to come up with new systems. As I said, much more attention certainly needs to be placed on intermodal transports, moving cargo swiftly out of the port to the end, let's say, of our current railway lines, Grootfontein, Walvis, loaded on trucks there, and so on. We need to investigate the costs and benefits of this as well. We talked about competitiveness and involvement in regional value chains. It's not just about regional value chains with South Africa and so, but also about global value chains. And what's becoming more and more, as I see it, important in trade and production are sustainability issues. Sustainability in regard of social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and of course economic sustainability, because international manufacturers or companies are much more under scrutiny concerning the impact on the environment and other issues. There is certainly room for improvement within Namibia. A study in Namibia showed in 2012 that environmental sustainability is hardly an issue for transport operators. And that is backed also by our score in the Logistics Performance Index, the latest of 2014, where we scored 1.9 in concerning the demand for environmentally friendly transport services. This is not just below the global average of 2.1, but also below the average of neighboring countries, South Africa, Botswana, and Lesotho. It also indicates that the demand will pick up, and the logistics sector needs to be prepared and needs to be proactive to respond to this increased demand for more sustainable transport services. And because of that, I had a quick look at the Sustainable Development Goals that were agreed upon by all countries last year in August. And there are 4 development goals, as I see it, that have an impact on logistics operations. Most prominently, certainly, the SDG 3 that refers to healthy lives, and so, and the aim is to halve the number of fatalities from deaths and injuries or in road traffic. And the other one is, and the other one is to also reduce the deaths from contact with hazardous substances. Just a few figures. I think it's very important. Namibia has about 20, or had about 25 fatalities and road accidents per 100,000 inhabitants. That was in 2013. Last year it has increased to 30. We have almost 200 accidents per 100,000 vehicles on our roads. That compares to 4.3 fatalities per 100,000 in Germany, for instance, or 6.8 fatalities per 100,000 vehicles in Germany. So it clearly indicates that we need to invest, not only invest, we need to review our safety standards, our regulations concerning road use. And I'm not saying that this is all because of the logistics sector, but trucks are more often involved in accidents in respect of the total number registered in the country than other vehicles. What certainly needs to be done, we need to have regulation, and not just within Namibia, but also in the region, about working hours of drivers. After how many hours do they need to rest? What is the maximum hours of driving? We need to have regulations also about the payment of truck drivers. If they are paid per load, of course it provides an incentive to drive as long as and fast even as possible to get another load and have an income again, and so on. Safety standards of vehicles certainly need to be reviewed, also within SADC, not just in Namibia. And as I mentioned, the safety standards of roads and railway lines, we need to have an agreement to reduce the accidents. And then, of course, we need to have, there are strict international rules, regulations concerning the transportation of hazardous substances by air and by sea. We are still working on regulations by road and rail in Namibia. I don't know the status in the SADC region. Secondly, of course, combat climate change. Logistics sector accounts for about 13% of total greenhouse gas emissions. That's according to a report released in January by World Economic Forum. So there is, and in Namibia it's most likely higher because we are less industrialized, so there are fewer emissions from industrial activities. Distances between markets, consumers, production centers, and so are much longer here. So again, we need to agree on certain minimum standards concerning fuel efficiency, cleaner fuels. We need to reduce waste, let's say, at border posts, long waiting hours that contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Since we are talking about the logistics sector in general, warehouses, office blocks, and so on should agree or should apply green building standards to reduce the impact on the environment, and apply renewable energies where possible. Two other sustainable production requires the involvement of the logistics sector. We need to have an efficient transport and logistics sector to reduce the waste of food from the farm gates up to the end user. So the logistics, the transport sector plays an important role here as well. And sorry, that was SDG 12, but SDG 9 also refers to infrastructure development, cross-border infrastructure, there are certain components like one-stop border post. We heard about it since 2006, but it's the only one. We haven't really moved forward. I don't know what the lessons are from this one-stop border post, why it's not being extended. Briefly on the SADC protocol, half a minute. It was signed in 1996, so it turned or is turning 20 this year. As far as I know, not much has happened. We haven't agreed on, there are a lot of very good and important statements in the protocol that you have to agree on working hours, that you have to agree on road safety, on traffic control, and so on and so forth. But nothing has happened. We don't have any regional regulations on all these various aspects. The logistics industry, or the Namibia Logistics Association, they are working on now industry norms for Namibian operators, and on a self-appraisal, voluntary self-appraisal system that they are going to implement, and hope to reduce the loss of lives, or also loss of cargo and economic impacts from road accidents. But if we are going to liberalize the transport sector, we need to have regional regulations so that we level the playing field. We can only work on the cabotage system, and so if maximum working hours, safety standards of trucks, and so apply to all operators and not to just one country. Thank you very much.
It's very interesting that Namibia has identified logistics as one of the key economic sectors that we're going to try and develop in this current development plan. And of course, Immanuel highlighted to you what it is that we are doing in that regard. And of course, Klaus then went further and actually look at what are the implications when we have this thriving logistical sector in Namibia. What are some of those human soft issues that we need to look at? And I think he gave very good details, linking them up to the SDGs. They used to be MDGs, right? Now they're SDGs. Thank you so much for that. I would like to ask, before the questions, the roaming mics are sent out, those that have questions regarding to the port, could I ask that maybe, if you really need clarity from Immanuel, you could ask him, but maybe could we leave those to the field visit this afternoon, if that's okay? And then, but if it's really burning and you do need seek clarity, you're most welcome to ask the questions. Yes, so, and then most that Klaus perhaps can also ask. So I'd like to, if there are any comments or questions available, yes. So we have two so far.
Yeah, thank you very much, my brother. Now, in light of promoting the region, the tripartite, I don't see this project going beyond Southern Africa. I would very much love to see if we had, for example, rail coming to East Africa, but I find it almost becomes a project of the Southern Africa as well. So for purposes of promoting the integration, we would very much love to see it reaching East Africa. And the reason why I'm saying this is if you read the newspapers yesterday, Uganda was shipping the first consignment of ARVs worth $4 million from Uganda. The pharmaceutical plant is in Uganda, and all were being shipped by air. So it was 70 metric tons being carried by air from Uganda to Namibia. So that was yesterday. So I find that if we could penetrate the EAC, we would find a more movement of cargo, raw materials, and finished products in the region. So let it extend to the Central, rather East Africa, and probably the North. That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you to the speakers for a very interesting presentation. I wonder if it's possible to elaborate a little bit on the financing models that are available, or how the financing should be designed, both in Namibia and in collaboration with the other countries, in order to implement all these, especially the infrastructure, both physical and soft infrastructure that's needed to realize these ambitions. Thank you.
My name is Joseph again. May I find out, Namibia, Walvis Bay, or Namibia, donated land for dry ports to neighboring countries, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Zambia, other than decongesting the port by moving goods from one specific place to another within the port area. What advantages does this give to neighboring countries? Why I'm saying that is that to us as Zimbabweans, we don't find it useful. The politicians think it's a good idea. They are battling to fund construction of a dry port. But from an industry point of view, we don't think we have got much use of such a dry port. Because ideally what we want to do is to not only to decongest the port from an operator's point of view, but also to assist the movement of goods inland. So it would have been desirable if dry port, for example, along this corridor, Trans-Caprivi, the one that points to Zimbabwe, if we had a dry port somewhere where the railway line ends, so that it would be easy for us to come and pick up goods nearer to us than to come all the way to the port. Because the biggest inherent for using the dry port is the distance, also considering the weather conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. I think they are easy, straightforward. Of course, the focus is on our current main markets, and that is Southern Africa. We hardly trade with any other countries in the region except for SACU countries and maybe Zambia, Zimbabwe. But you're right, we need to look in the future, and there are plans actually to extend the railway line from Grootfontein, which is in the northwest of Namibia, through the so-called Zambezi area, then to the Zambian railway network, and from there you would have access to the Tanzanian and or Eastern African railway network. I see this as a rather long-term project. I think the more imminent one is definitely the Trans-Kalahari railway line, because of the coal deposits in Botswana that might be shipped through the Walvis Bay harbour. On the financing, there are certainly various models. Namibia, I would say, made a big step there by creating the public-private partnership unit in the Ministry of Finance, and I think it's in the final stages of creating or establishing the legal framework for PPPs, and that can certainly be a model to finance some of the infrastructure needs. SADC, I don't know how far we are there with the SADC Development Fund. That could be another tool to fund infrastructure developments within the SADC region. So there are different opportunities, but of course you're right. These are major projects I have forgotten the cost for the Trans-Kalahari railway line. It's billions, and in addition to current infrastructure developments. So we need to be innovative, certainly, with the financing. The dry ports, as I understand, but Immanuel certainly knows better, it's not just that all the containers for Botswana are parked there and then whenever there is a truck or railway available, it's moved to Botswana. It's also, you can repackage and recombine or so cargo. So it goes beyond just storing containers. It's more like warehousing and could be used for transshipments there. But I think Immanuel is more competent on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions once again. On the rail, it was already mentioned that currently state is looking more on rehabilitating the core existing rail. The extensions is not really a priority right now, but we have feasibility studies available, and we are trying already to promote it to investors that will be interested in doing the construction of those rail projects. On the dry port, if I'm not mistaken, this was as a result of international treaty, if I'm not mistaken, is the Almighty Declaration to avail land to landlocked countries, to provide them access to sea markets. And actually, Namibia responded to providing land to our neighboring landlocked countries like Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Botswana. As you will be seeing at the port today, the land has been given for a long time now, and that those land is actually underutilized. Then it brings us back to the issues of implementation. Maybe states that actually provided this opportunity do not have actually plans on how they would like to utilize this land. But then I think most of plans has been implemented. I mean, it's been submitted to the port of Walvis Bay, and we can see there's been a lot of movement and development at Botswana dry port and Zambia for that matter. But I think this is the information that I can provide.
I wanted to raise something that Klaus, or comment on something that Klaus raised about repackaging and bulk breaking and so forth in the port. And this brought to mind, and then now that has also come up in the context of the land availed to Zimbabwe and so on. I recall the former head of IDC in South Africa told me that in the port of Rotterdam, the value of South African coal is quadrupled. Just because there they sort it, grade it, and package it for specific end user customers. So that commodity goes up in price enormously just through a kind of a repackaging process, and then delivering it on time to the right consumer in the right quantities and so forth. And this is an area that we haven't tackled at all. And it would be good if Corridor Group can begin to work on this and see what value addition is possible through this whole logistics operation, not just value in the efficiency of shipping and delivery, but in fact add or capture some of the more of the value of the supply chain within Namibia and maybe within the region, rather than let it be done elsewhere.
Well, it's not really a question, but maybe a response to Geoffrey on the infrastructure for the tripartite. I know there are southern corridors and I think northern corridors, and the best would be to link these than maybe to construct a rail or road from Walvis Bay to Kampala. So I think in planning, because I know the PPIU, which was the Project Planning and Implementation Unit, which was a tripartite initiative funded by DFID. Unfortunately, because of lack of funding, they have sort of scaled down. But in terms of the resources to develop the corridors within the tripartite, there is a master plan for that, which I think would link the major corridors that are there. Perhaps one may provide more information on this, but there is a tripartite master plan infrastructure project that is, I think currently now is funded by the African Development Bank.
My comment to Immanuel would be that the failure to develop the dry ports, I think it's less to do with the implementation challenges, but more to do with the lack of consultation before the idea was approved. Then my question is, as well, comes from the announcement that was made by Trudy that the port is closing at 4. Would you care just to give us the full operational hours for the port, including the status during weekends?
I think we could
be having a trade barrier there. And then, unless if it doesn't have the answer, maybe.
No, I think we could ask that at the port, because I think those were just instructions that were given to us. I don't think the port closes at 4 o'clock, but the administrative staff.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
then my last question is a digression, which I think is necessary from the organizers of the conference. We were told that there were issues to do with new visa arrangements for Namibia. Would my neighbor please care to clarify on the new arrangement?
Right, I think I can answer that one. Yes. Yeah, should I answer? I think, yeah, there was no other questions here. So basically, this is a regulation from the Ministry of Home Affairs, which neither Ministry of Trade and Industry or Ministry of Environment and Tourism were consulted on. But of course, we know that there is an impact, especially on trade and tourism, of course, that if, especially this, what is it, meetings, events, conferences, market that has come up, this is a big sort of setback. But it is something that we are, through the right channels, are trying to see if we can get clarity on as to why this has happened this year. All right. What are the regulations? If, as a tourist from SADC, you know you don't need a visa, you can just come into Namibia. But when you're coming for business, you require a business visa. So even to come to the conference, we had to arrange business visas for all your delegates to come to this conference. Yes. No, not when you come as a tourist. As a tourist, you are still free to come for your 90 days, whatever number of days that you require.